Hello, and welcome to Straight No Chaser with Dr. Julius Bailey. For probably the 50th or 60th time, I am Julius Bailey, and I've just been grateful to be able to host the show with you now for the second season. We are going to end this season today. I do have a special event that's coming up on November 19th, but this will be the final season finale. We're going to take a little break as we end the semester here at Wittenberg and go into Thanksgiving, and I'll kind of reevaluate things in my personal life and see how it reflects the show and be able to bring you something, maybe even in December, but if not, certainly in the new year. As you know, we are a digital talk show for 1 hour. Today, hopefully, will be the same. If not, we may go a little bit more, but we certainly want you to share this, tell a friend. We got some powerful conversations ahead of us. Certainly some raw and visceral conversations, but certainly as well thoughtful and lucid. And so we want to be able to acknowledge the strength of our heart today, right? And so, I'm not going to take long, but I do want to say a couple things. One, I can't lie, right? I put on my black shirt today and got my black pants and my black socks and my black shoes. And my daughter said, "Daddy, why you got on all black?" And I laughed at her. I said, the Russian writer Anton Chekhov asked that same question in The Seagull. And he asked the question, why is it that Masha wore all black? And Masha said, because I'm in a constant state of mourning, right? And so I told my daughter, baby, your daddy's in mourning today. I'm concerned about my state of Ohio. I'm concerned about our nation. Even she said, Daddy, did Trump win? I said, not yet. And he might not. I said, but there are some trends that are playing across the country that concerns you, my wonderful 13-year-old black daughter, and what it looks like to be in this America. And so, our conversation today really I'm just going to ask you to think about, what does democracy look like, right? We heard the chants in the streets over the summer. This is what democracy looks like. And I think the response to that is clear across the nation, that most of America didn't like that view of democracy. Most of America didn't like to see young people, hungry people, sick people, hurting people chanting out for their lives. They didn't want to see that. They wanted law and order. They wanted what Trump has to offer. They wanted us to not look at the pains and cries and visceral realities of what it looks like when poverty hits, what it looks like when 240 plus thousand people have died over COVID-19. They don't want that conversation. They want law and order. This is what fascism looks like. And we're worried about protests. Listen, our democracy is in trouble. Our nation, quite frankly, is sick right now. I'm sick, but our nation is sick. Our nation is upholding certain views and values that doesn't allow for the vision of what a robust country of care might look like. And we support and we give love to a gangster in the White House, a gangster who's proven himself to be xenophobic, homophobic, transphobic, right? Anti-poor. And he smiles at you and says, this is what America looks like. He's the law and order president. Yeah, he's the president that creates distrust and discord. He is the president that turns violent upon his own people. He is the president that discredits elections before the daggone election is over. That tells you, America, that we can stop the counting now because I'm winning. We're winning. And anything that we count after this is some sort of conspiracy against us good Americans. And many of you at 2:30 this morning, I watched you clap. And I'm saying to you, you don't give a damn about American democracy. You are a supporter of a despot, of a fascist. We'll talk about this later, maybe. But I know you say, Dr. Bailey, Trump is not a fascist. I'm like, well, he might not be an economic fascist. I'm not going to go there. We can have that conversation on an intellectual level. But if you don't think he's consistent with a Mussolini culturally, if you don't think he's consistent with the brother down in Brazil, in Bolsonaro, if you don't think he's consistent with him culturally, if you don't think he's consistent with the dude in Hungary culturally, then you're losing out and missing out on what fascism looks like. But listen, that's just me. I have some wonderful guests today, and I can go all day. I'm just fired up. I'm mad. I'm sad. I'm in mourning. But I got some wonderful guests today that's going to kind of bring us some vision. I'm going to just introduce them first in terms of how I'm going to bring them in, but they'll all be on your screen. You feel free to email and to put some chat in the room, and let's have some conversation. But first we have, we've brought her before, Ms. Morgan Harper, attorney Morgan Harper, who is the founder of Columbus Stand Up. And also she is the former candidate for the United States Congress. Also, we have our Madam Mayor, former mayor out of Dayton, and now the vice chair of the state of Ohio, is Democratic Party in Rhine McLin. And we also have Ms. Joelle Jones, the co-founder of Neighborhood Over Politics. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the show, all three of you, phenomenal women and leaders and everything that you do. I thank you for taking a few minutes out of your time. But I want to start with you, Morgan. I mean, you heard my intro. I could have went on, but I mean, you ran. I support the sister, but you ran against a sister. Not that you was anti-her, but you understood as a progressive that liberal ideas oftentimes are too aligned with the center and too aligned with the right at times. And sometimes we even lose, we might even call it milquetoast, right? We're not even sure what side you're on, right? And I know today you have certain feelings nationally about what it means to be a progressive in this nation. Can you give us some ideas about what you're thinking right now?
Yeah, well, thank you, Dr. Bailey, for having me on again. And it's great to be here with my fellow panelists. I don't know if I realized it when you reached out to schedule this, but it was good to have this to look forward to, that would have a space for conversation and processing what's going on. And, I think what we're seeing is, one, with the presidential race, obviously, like you were alluding to in the intro, there's a lot to be very concerned about by the resilience of Donald Trump's support and what that means about what our country is actually about, right? I think we're all in the space of just hoping as much as we possibly can that Joe Biden can pull this off and hit 270 with the electoral votes, but it's not clear right now, and we'll just have to keep watching. But one good piece of news there is it looks a lot better than it did last night,
right?
Which was not a good headspace to be in. I know for those of us who aren't night people and couldn't stay up till 2:30 to see whatever the president was saying. But also that there has been a good job of messaging across the country. I think a lot of folks here in Ohio as well is trying to prepare people for what Trump would be saying, that he would be trying to invalidate the results, that he would never accept any outcome that is suggesting that he could lose, and that we need to reinforce this messaging of patience. And we're hearing it from Joe Biden's side as well this morning, patience to let the count be completed, because there's a lot of complications around this election cycle due to COVID and so much early voting, and we need to have all the votes counted to make sure that the true to the extent that the Electoral College allows for the true will of the people to be heard and counted, that process needs to be completed. So that's good. But we have to be honest. And I do think that 2020, that is a reoccurring theme. Honesty. Honest about where are we at and what is working and what isn't working. And so the fact that this is coming down to just hundreds of votes, thousands of votes, like he might hit 270. That is a reflection that we aren't breaking through with our messaging, that we still have a very strong number of people across the country, and clearly here in Ohio, because post-COVID, right, a disastrous management of this pandemic, post Black Lives Matter uprisings, and people coming out into the streets, calling out systemic racism, and a president and a vice president that said, we basically do not care about any of those things, and we will side with white supremacists. And they still are winning, right? I mean, and not just like by a little bit in Ohio, but by a lot post those things, right? And so we can only imagine what the results would have been before all of these things, right? If we didn't have COVID, if we didn't have the summer of protests, what actually those numbers would look like. Right. And we need to get real. And we're seeing it, you know, in the Senate races that aren't necessarily going as well as we would have wanted, some congressional seats that were much closer or not landing where we would have wanted. And yes, there is a certain subset of people, I think, in this country that are racist, that are willing to do whatever it takes to hold on to whatever bit of privilege they think they have. And I'd be interested in some views from, you know, the other panelists as well on this, but there are a lot of people that don't fall into that camp, that do, I think, want to have a more proactive message. And the message of, I'm not going to be Donald Trump, I'm not going to be a Republican, doesn't seem to be breaking through. So what's our next play here? And you know, and we need to be real about that, because there are Black folk that voted for Trump, right? I mean, let's be real. And so, you know, as we look forward, I hope that, like I said, I absolutely want the count to continue. I absolutely hope that Joe Biden can pull this off. But what our next play is, what kind of leadership and what kind of organizing and messaging that's going to take to break through this chokehold of dominance that Republicans have had over this country, and you know, we'd like to think of it as a minority of people, but it's not, you know, I mean, you know, from a popular vote perspective, but certainly here in Ohio, there's a lot of people that are susceptible to this. And so we need a new game plan. And, you know, I'm interested in thinking through that and working with folks to pull one together.
No question. And Madam Mayor, again, welcome to the show, Rhine McLin, the former mayor of Dayton, as well as the current vice chair of the Ohio Democratic Party. Listen, I mean, I know you have some national vision too, so wherever you want to jump in, but also I want you to lead into your thoughts today about the state of Ohio and the races, obviously, that you have helped to sort of put forward, and some we've won and some we've lost. But if you have any general ideas about what we're talking about on the national level, you know, just come in there, but, you know, certainly kind of bring us home in terms of what Ohio looks like to you today, someone who has devoted her entire life to this state.
You know, one of the things I just want to mention, and Morgan has touched upon a lot of serious issues and states, but, you know, one of the logic today, I've come to the conclusion that logic and reasoning is not what's going to help us here, because none of this makes sense. You have Trumbull County. Let me just say this: Trumbull County, home of Lordstown, where lost all of those jobs, gave Trump more votes than they did in 2016. How do you explain that? So I think nobody wants to talk about. We can talk about affordable health care. We can talk about jobs. We can talk about everything that you want to talk about. At the end of the day, the elephant in the room is race.
Yes.
And that, you know, we camouflage it and we talk about a lot of other different things. But when it comes down to it, the majority of the melanin impoverished people are afraid of the melanin enriched people being in the dominance. And so what we're seeing is their fight for survival. He talks the language to them. He lets them know that they are the chosen ones and that they must do these things in order to survive. Ohio, and people forget, Ohio, number one industry is still agriculture. So you can't even win Ohio if you do the urban counties. You can't win it. So what we're seeing here in Ohio is a fight. Ohio has shown itself. I mean, you think about the corruption that they've had in the state house.
Yes. Yeah.
And they still winning. But the good news is this is the last of this gerrymandered districts that they can run on. I don't know what the future holds,
Right.
but these are the last districts they can run, because I'm telling you, right here in Montgomery County, the 10th district, Desiree Timms, a first-time candidate, 32 years old, African-American woman, she gave Mike Turner a run for his money
Serious one. Yeah.
in a gerrymandered district. So there is a change moving on. I believe there's a change that is moving. As we look at Ohio, I'm glad my county went blue, because I didn't want to believe I was living in some of this other stuff. So I'm happy to report Ohio and Montgomery County went blue, Hamilton went blue. And so it gives me some comfort in knowing that it's bad, but it's not worse in where I'm living in Ohio. But what we're seeing though is the young people are making a move to say, I don't like what I'm seeing.
Sure.
And we have the older people who are holding on and saying, I like it the way it is. So we're going to see this struggle politically. And I believe, unfortunately, parties are going to be challenged because they're not meeting the needs of what people see them as wait your turn, or this person's been here long enough, they carried enough literature for so and so, so now it's their turn. I see political parties are going to have to be more refreshing in their inclusiveness for the future. And I think that's why we saw so many Republicans supporting Joe Biden, because Trump has taken away the Republican Party as they once knew it. They can't describe it or explain it.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's
stop
real.
right there. And,
No, yeah, we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
So, Joelle, I mean, no, you heard the mayor speak about Montgomery County. I mean, certainly, from her perspective, it is good to know that, at least they attempted on a national level to bring Biden home. But we also saw, like you said, the challenges that we have, even with people who you know well, like LaRonda Jackson, like obviously with Desiree Timms. And I know me and the mayor had a conversation the other day, about that LaRonda Jackson race, and just like praying that she, that the people bring her through. But what are your thoughts today, Joelle, about especially Montgomery County? And then again, if you want to jump on the national piece, you can. But what are you thinking today about your home, Montgomery County, and the way it represented or didn't represent, and what this piece means for the future of our state?
I think it's extremely interesting the way the numbers have spanned out, Dr. Bailey. So let's dissect that. And I haven't had the complete opportunity to look at all the numbers, but so we have Desiree Timms, who came up short. We have LaRonda, who came up short, right? It even looks like some of our county candidates are coming up short. But Mike Turner wins, and we still have some Democrats winning, which means that, to me, we have a much more intentional focus electorate, because people are literally going down the ballot, choosing some Republicans and choosing some Democrats. So are we still in that this is a ballot thing? I'm going to vote straight down my ballot. Of course, we have our lifelong sold out Democrats, lifelong sold out Republicans. But I think the mayor touched on that. We have an electorate of youth who do not subscribe to either one of those philosophies anymore.
Right.
It is not about Republican or Democrat. It is about how can this candidate help me to achieve a life equal to my parents or better? And I say that I have two sons, 25 and 19. And even though they grew up in a house where the mom was very politically active, and former candidate, they have come to their own conclusions about policy and of what they want this country to look like. And it sometimes does not mirror my policy or what I think, or what I thought I brought them in. And then there's the other factor, Dr. Bailey. We talk about Democrat or Republican in Montgomery County in the state. But what Trump appeals to, Trump is neither a Republican, he's not a Republican, he's an opportunist. And so what he appeals to is those people notion of what America used to be. And that, like the mayor and Morgan said, and what it has to go back to maintain white supremacy. Now, that doesn't always mean white racism, but the fact that the white race has the higher footing in this country. But in Montgomery County, it is time for some change. And both parties, and I can speak from the Democratic Party because I am a Democrat, has to do a better job of training and opening up the doors to those people who have been working passionately in the community and want to serve, not because they worked on someone's campaign or not because they have a political patronage job, but because they care about the community. So what I see in Montgomery County are missed opportunities.
Right.
And I don't say that because, of my race. Missed opportunities. We have done a piss poor job of bringing younger people or other people into the fold. And what has happened in both parties, they have become a social club of sorts, where you have to pay your dues, kiss the ring in order to get through. And so my comment is, where has that gotten us?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And I think, Madam Mayor, then I want to get to you, Morgan. Madam Mayor, I think I would love for you to sort of answer that question, right? So there is a sense to which young people, Joelle was right, young people, especially in Montgomery County, but all over the state, right? I've talked to, the folk in Toledo and folk in Cleveland, and, some have won, some have lost their races. But I've talked to them and they're fired up, right? They certainly want to be involved. But there are some really structural impediments, right? And one has to do with the ways in which, and this is not endemic to the Democratic Party at all, so it's not, but it's the ways in which party politics operates, right? And so, and then when you couple that with finances, right? These folk need access to money. These folk need money, right? And so that may be a third segment that we all can jump in terms of, a lot of our Black conscious folk who don't put their money where their mouth is. But the reality is, though, Madam Mayor, is that, there are folk on fire to run. Can you kind of give them today an encouragement and say, listen, we see you as a party. We appreciate you as a party. And we want you to know that as we go forward in 2021 and 2022, that we have your back and you're welcome to we're welcome to partner with you, and you're welcome to join us, and whatever we can do to help you in your politics, you can do.
That's a serious question that you have posed about how it goes about, because now let's talk about Dontavius Gerald's up in Franklin County.
Franklin, yeah,
I'm very proud of him. Young, Dayton has produced Willis Blackshear Young, but I think I'll hold the African American community to this. We have not established our own succession plan to train and nurture our young people to be candidates, campaign managers, to understand the process. And a lot of the older African Americans that have that ability and that experience to give are very selfish with their giving. And that needs to change, because it's like, I did it, I have it, and so therefore you got to get it the hard way. So that makes our younger Black candidates go a different route, which makes them learn a different experience. And one of the things we have to teach is that, and you talked about, and this is something different later, is that at the end of the day, I don't care how good a candidate you are, if you can't raise the money to get your message out, you're not going anywhere.
Right.
So we have to teach them the difference between networking and relationships. There's a difference between networking and relationships and having a constituency base. You just can't wake up in the morning and say, I'm running. Who you have with you?
Right.
And
right.
so we need to really be concentrating on the African Americans and giving them a plan to get where they want to go. And today I just gave an example to someone. John Houston ran against me as a college student at University of Dayton when I was the state rep. He ran against me. They put him up and run against me. He went from there, even though he lost, he went from there to being an aide to a county commissioner. From there, he went to be with the Chamber of Commerce. From there, he went to be a state representative. There, he went to be a Speaker of the House. There, he went to be Secretary of State. And now, he's Lieutenant Governor. Do we do that for ours?
No, we don't.
Right.
We don't do that. And I tell you the other thing that's really disappointing. We don't look out for African American candidates who, or former elected officials who have done their jobs. When it comes time for them to get a job or to do something else, nobody can see them or hear them. They're just out there. And so we need to develop that mechanism that forces them to recognize the services and duties that Black elected officials have given, that they should get the same opportunities that some of the melanin in impoverished candidates get. They look out for them. They have a place to land. They get a job in a county office. They do this or do they do that, but they look out for them. African American candidates, melanin enriched candidates, when you lose or you're done, they just see you as done. And so we got to look out for each other, and we got to also put our money where our mouth is.
No,
campaigns aren't run on fumes. We need to have entrepreneurships. Who can get somebody to run? And this is extremely important. Why am I going to sacrifice to run for office? And if I don't win, how I'm going to feed my family, how I'm going to pay my rent, and who's going to pick that up to say, hey, here, Joelle, here, Miss Harper, here's a job for you. You run, we support you, and here's a job for you. If you don't make it, we got you.
Right.
We need to have those safety nets for ourselves and not stop expecting the melanin impoverished people to take care of us.
I hear you. Morgan, let me bring you in. I can imagine, just thinking how I feel, I can imagine what you might be thinking. And I would love to hear you. So I'll usher you in this way. Certainly to run for political office in America, from the local or state level, as well as the national level. Certainly this conversation that we've been having for the last 5 minutes around being a part of the traditional party, has its definite benefits, right? But we also know, as we kind of intimated earlier, that, oftentimes that benefit might not outweigh the effectiveness, right? And so somebody like you and others might say, listen, it would be nice to have that backing, right? But the reality is that, do I really want to align myself, Republican, Democrat, or whatever, if in fact what I'm truly fighting for is not what they're truly fighting for, right? And so I want you to kind of jump in there, Morgan, if you don't mind, and then say, listen, you understand parties, right? I mean, you know all this, but somebody right now is feeling how you felt, 3 years ago, like 2 years ago, and feeling how you're feeling today, and me and Joelle, and even I'm sure the mayor is feeling that, is there efficacy in third party politics? If it's not, then what is the answer for those folk who are still left of the left, right? Are saying, no, we need to talk about po folk. We need to talk about militarism. We need to talk about anti-capitalism. We need to have this conversation, right? Jump in on this, Morgan, for me.
Yeah, there's so much to pick up on here. I certainly can empathize with anybody who's sitting in that position, and it's been interesting for me this morning too, to reflect on my reaction to 2016, which very much, I think, put me on this path to eventually run as a Democrat, of course, because I do think we need to be real, just in terms of the viability of being a third party candidate, but as a Democrat, and proudly so, but believing in a different vision for what our party should stand for, in that we should be standing for something policy-based, exactly to the generational point that the other panelists were making. And so, this is the thing, though. We can do this, right? Because a lot is changing, and it's changing very quickly. A lot of people who felt like, oh, Morgan, like, you lose, you're done forever. It's like, okay, well, actually, that's why I, in some ways, felt a tremendous obligation to run and start to put these ideas out there and think about the future, because I felt like, no, I will be okay. I do have a lot of privilege in that sense, that I will be able to get a job, that I've worked in other places, and you're not going to be able to crush me in that way. And I want to use that privilege to, one, liberate our people, right, and bring some real justice here to our state, to our country, but then also to support other people who feel similarly, who will run, that we can build off of this infrastructure to ultimately start to define what our party will be about for the next generation. And I think this connects to the national point as well, because we also saw in this presidential race the limit of things like the Lincoln Project that spent so much money on trying to convert Republicans, right? So much money on trying to get to those suburban voters. And that had its limits, right? We find ourselves still in this very narrow count situation. This is not a landslide. We have to be doing the hard work of reaching people who this system has not worked for, the economic system and the political system is a reflection of, that has been run by a smaller set of elites that profit off of it and have no desire to see it change. That is the fundamental division here. And I think that's what the younger generation is very aware of, because I'm, elder millennial category, maybe on the upper end of that. We see what's ahead, right? No reliable healthcare necessarily. Parents that maybe have a pension, but maybe not, but we know they're the last generation to get it. And we're going to have to take on that responsibility and think about what that looks like for ourselves. Education costs, student debt, all of it. And so that's where I think there is an opening to run different types of candidates, but completely agree with the mayor that we have to be open to that. We have to be willing to accept those learnings and think differently. So, I really do. I have optimism for that, because I think that this election further emphasizes just the need to change based on some of the results we're seeing in the presidential and in other down ballot races. There is room, like we've been pointing out, like here, Franklin County, we saw the local success with a prosecutor, 24 veteran prosecutor. And that was a policy-driven campaign. It's like, even if maybe people aren't getting into the nuances of police reform policy, they know that, okay, this guy hasn't done anything about this police accountability issue. And that's why we are going to vote in a different way. So I'm hopeful, but we really do need to start with honesty, and then being willing to embrace different ideas and people as we think about the future of the party.
Joelle, you want?
Yeah, definitely. I love what both of them are saying. But to add to, let's talk about running. And I will preface this. I was a candidate for state rep, but let's talk about running within the party. And the mayor brought it up. So what we do within the parties, not just in Montgomery County, within a lot of the parties, we have become accustomed and allow them to choose who they think should represent our community. And then the ones who did not kiss the ring, or they don't believe should represent the party, they put roadblocks to fundraising, roadblocks to outreach, roadblocks to data. That's what happened to me, not only to me, but to other people, to Morgan. It happens all the time. So the party that you have become accustomed to protecting you becomes the party that blocks you for whatever reason. So there are these demarcations within our party itself, and we don't want to talk about it, Dr. Bailey. We want to push it up under the rug and say, it's the Republicans, when we're doing some of the same things within the Democratic Party that the Republicans are doing to ourselves. And one of the things I believe about Republicans is they're very patient. They are very patient. They're willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. And sometimes we don't even see it coming. They will
Right.
sacrifice a candidate now to get the candidate they want later.
Mm.
But what happens locally, it seems like we're all fighting, you know? And, you know, there is a time where you become prepared and knowledgeable to run a race. And then there are times when you're not. And so what's happening to me, and from the conversations I'm having, is that people see through the BS. And so we say we have this candidate, but what are they talking about? What have they done in the community? What have they spearheaded? And when you look at their records, it's empty. So we keep giving these candidates to people, wanting them to support them. And yeah, they'll win a race here locally, but what happens when they step out into the greater arena? They
Right.
get crushed
Right.
because we do not take this seriously. It is an old boys, old girls game within the party. The
Right.
party I love. I am a Democrat, not because of my local party. I'm a Democrat because the tenets of the Democratic Party. That's why I chose to be that way. But we don't talk about what's happening in our party, and we see it nationally.
Right.
We saw it with the Bernie campaign. What was happening there? Even though and I'll be honest, I'm a Bernie crap. Even
Right.
though Bernie was what we wanted, our party did everything to block that. Nope, we're not going to send him for whatever reasons. I'm not part of those backdoor conversations. This is who we're going to send. And so now we've stepped up and we're supporting Biden. I want him to win this race. But the millennials, people like me, were saying, well, we told you so.
Right.
Because we're out there in the community, we're doing the work. We're having those conversations. And I think what's happening is that our party have become silos for the people that they know better, that they socialize. When I said that social club, and what's happening, good candidates, and not talk about me, good candidates are not being mentored and nourished to go out into this community and serve. And I just think we have because of social media, we have a much more informed, whether it's right or wrong, electorate, especially with young people. They see past the BS, they see past it, and they can smell it. And they're not supporting this agenda because they don't feel that it identifies with them. And that is a problem.
And I think,
who do we have coming after Biden? Who do we have? If he doesn't win us today, God forbid, who do we have coming up the ranks?
And I think that's exactly what the mayor was saying in terms of secession plans. That she was talking interracial though, but the reality is that there has to be more strategy. And I think that I agree with you. But I kind of want to make a transition. We've got about 25 minutes. I kind of like a slight transition here. I'm thinking about both the concept and the idea of democracy. And I'm thinking about the reality that we face today. And so I don't know, all three of you know what's been on my mind lately. And obviously that has kind of altered a little bit in the last few hours. But I think I would love, Morgan, if you could right now, before I do what I would do. Morgan, I want you to talk to a Desiree Timms right now. I wanted to reach out to her this morning and see if she'd be on the show, but I don't know how she's feeling, and I know I wouldn't feel. But you've been exactly where Morgan is where Desiree is today, and Morgan, if you just give her a word of encouragement, we know that people on Facebook are calling her saying, "Girl, we're gonna do it next time. We're gonna push through." But you've been exactly where she is today. Morgan, can you speak to Desiree right now?
Yeah, I would just tell Desiree, who I don't know personally, but we do have some folks in common, that you've done a tremendous job, and it is such an exercise in vulnerability to put yourself out there, run for office, especially as a Black woman, especially going against an entrenched Republican, and she did an amazing job and came fairly close, and so especially as a first-time candidate. So keep going. I do want to connect. I definitely don't think she would want to be out if anything like how I felt after our race wrapped up, out talking publicly. So I get that.
Right.
But whenever she's ready, look to, connect and talk about the future of our state and our country, and let's build together because we believe in you. And this isn't a reflection at all of your value, because it can be hard. And I know, it's just after, and Joelle can speak to this too, and of course the mayor as well, I'm sure, but because you wonder, right? Like, was it worth it? And are people still gonna think the same of you? And it's just because it can feel like a failure in a way to lose. But we've got you, and we're here. And whenever you're ready, we're going to continue to support you and make you into an even better leader than you already are.
And I know, Mary, you were her biggest cheerleader, and I know you may have already called her. If not, you're going to call her soon. What would you say to?
I've already reached out to her.
I figure you have, yeah.
And the first thing I told her to do was step back, breathe, so she can move forward, and that she's not done. And this is just the beginning. And the opportunities for her are so wide open. And I'm so proud of her. I mean, you think about this young lady, 32 years old, worked her way through Georgetown, raised over $1 million to run against an entrenched male Republican in a gerrymandered district. Right. Now, when you put all that together, you can't help but take your hat off to her. And that she's the one that has come closest to giving him a scare.
Right.
And prior to that, there had been 3 melanin impoverished women who have run against him. And it was her, the melanin enriched young lady,
right,
that made him have to step up his game. So, sometimes losing is winning. And, it may not feel like it at the time, but losing is winning. And it gives you a chance to step back, breathe, and then move forward, because there's something always better for you, and it's a different opportunity. And I really do believe that God prepares you for things that you don't even know that you see.
Right.
And that at 32 years old, she has a big future. She could run for, she got name recognition right now.
Right.
She has name recognition. If she chose to, she could maybe run for mayor, or in 2 years, she could decide to run statewide, or because that district is very symbolic of what the state of Ohio is like.
Right.
So who knows?
Who knows? So one thing
she's not done. She's not done. This is just a temporary lull, and she's gonna be okay.
Well, we're just got to hope, I think, and I think this is what Morgan and I began this conversation with. We just have to hope that, I'm watching the election right now. We got to hope that Biden keeps pushing through, and that these mail-in votes that are pushing him through Michigan right now and pushing him through Wisconsin, we got to hope that this pushes him over to 270, because I think you all agree, and I'm not here. I'm not asking any of you to do this. I can do this myself. But I think that we know that another 4 years with Trump is just detrimental to our nation. And it may be detrimental to some of our souls, to be honest with you, because the reality is that so many of our friends, so many of our neighbors, so many of folk who we go to school with and go to church with and hang out with, they voted for Trump yesterday. Right. And the truth is that, someone would tell us and some won't tell us. But, I just ask us, like, do you really believe in democracy? Right. Do you really understand, like, what it is that you just voted for? Right. How did you feel? Like I said, I know how I felt. I was tired. I worked all day at them polls yesterday. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't never worked 14 hours doing nothing in my life. And I worked 14 hours yesterday. And I came home to have a conversation with my daughter, and I started watching the news. And then eventually they said Trump is going to talk tonight. And I stayed up until 2:30 in the morning. And Trump just went on to say, listen, we don't need to count no more. I'm ready to party. My family is here. We're ready to party. Stop the count. Stop the voting. We won. If you count one more person, that means this is a fraud. And then I seen people clapping. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, what do we say to our to our veterans who are, not even our veterans, what do we say to our current armed forces folk who are across the world who sent in their ballots? What do we say to all those people who are families of and currently suffering through COVID-19, who could not make it to a poll but put their stuff in a ballot box? What do we say to those folk, especially in the state of Ohio, where Houston, you just talked about, Mayor, said you can only have one box per county, and they traveled over the rivers and through the woods to get their thing in the box, and you're going to tell them their vote don't count? And you're going to clap for that president, and you're going to support that president who basically says to hell with democracy? Right? I'm concerned about an America like that. So I don't know what's going to happen in the next few months. Biden wins, Biden loses. But I know what I'm purposed toward, and I want y'all to think about this, maybe build some coalition. Maybe we could contact with Desiree and do some more work, and folk down there with Morgan. I mean, the grassroots stuff that you're doing, but I think we need to really have an understanding of what democracy is and what democracy looks like. I think we really need to understand that, and not just from our perspective. I think we need to be politically strategic, because Mayor said today that this isn't a day of rationality. This isn't a day of logic, right? Because logic would say, what the hell are y'all doing, America? But the reality is that they're telling us right now that they're linking democracy with blackness. They're linking democracy with poor folk, and poor folk, in which most of them are already, right? They're linking all that with that, such that when I'm able to say I'm pro-Trump, what I'm saying is I'm anti-democracy. Right?
Yes.
Joelle, you want to jump? Go ahead.
I want to say one thing here is that what we are witnessing, and I'm still going to go back to it, is racism, white supremacy, and the protection of it at all costs. Because and we can guise it any way we want to. We can try to disguise it any way we want to. But this is also an example of the 30 years of undoing public education. Most folks don't understand civics, social problems, and government. And this is the accumulation of about 30 years of the breakdown of public education. And now that's why you see the sheepos. They can't think for themselves. They've been taught to teach through a test. I mean, so many things in this arena. But the fact is, public education has been disseminated to the point that folks don't even think. They are in a position to be sheepos. And we're seeing it right now. Trump is more of a cult leader than he is anything else.
No question.
You know what? And that is so true. This rings, oh gosh, my mind so high. And there are two democracies here. There's the old democracy of the white establishment, where the white man was the ruler of this nation. And then immigration and the melting pot that we say we're really about happened. Now America is this multiplicit bowl of everything and everybody. And that was not the intention of America. I don't care what we talk about, or the intention of democracy. But here's another factor that's really interesting. If Biden loses, it's Black folks' fault. If Biden wins, a lot of that's going to be contributed to the Latino Hispanic vote. So where does that situate the Black vote going forward in the midterm elections 2022 and 2024? Will we still get that attention? Will we still get those efforts? Because it is evident now that the Latino Hispanic vote is driving this election, not the African American vote any longer. So when we start to think about democracy and what it looks like today, what it's going to look like 2 years, whose issues are going to be at the forefront of policy making locally, statewide, and nationally. And I believe that everybody's here for the same reason. But it does scare me. We don't talk about it, but if he loses, it's Black folks' fault.
Well, we should reject that.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay. And already that messaging is trickling out. And I agree with Joel on that.
Yep.
Because, yes, urban turnout, well, where are the, no. Has there been a 4-year strategy to persuade Black people to vote for the Democratic Party?
Nope.
If there has been, I haven't seen it. So no, no. And the things I hear about people that are supporting Trump, it's like, oh, well, he doesn't take any, he's standing up for us. He's standing up for the little guy. And even if that's a completely, false perception, it's one that he has effectively deployed, and there's been no alternative to counter it. So that's where we need to continue to think is, what is the game plan for countering that? Because even if Trump is defeated, which again, we all hope that's where this election lands, that sentiment, and this is something I've been hearing that Trumpism is not going away. So what is the plan to defeat it? And we need to be honest about getting there, and we need to get there very quickly.
Yes.
No, that's real. So listen, I mean, you all mentioned this. I'm gonna make this as kind of the last official kind of question or comment, and then we want to wrap up a little bit. So you all mentioned the Latino vote, right? And so I was in a precinct yesterday, and the precinct that I worked at was in New Carlisle. And shout out to all the people in New Carlisle. I know you ain't listening to this, so I don't even know why the hell I'm shouting you out. But the reality is, you might get forwarded this, and you may remember that one Negro y'all seen yesterday, and y'all was like, "Where does Negro come from?" You know what I'm saying? And y'all was nice to me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say nothing bad about New Carlisle. I think it was because I was probably at a church. And y'all was like, we at the church. We ain't going to trip too much. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing, right? But I would say this, though. Interestingly, that throughout the course of that day, the only color that showed up in that room was 3 Mexican folk, right? One was a family. One was a mother and a daughter, and the other one was just a solo voter. And in all 3 cases, and I'm lucky enough to shout out to Howard University and my high school for teaching me Spanish. In all those instances, they needed the board of directors the board of voters didn't even know I spoke Spanish. And they needed me because all 3 of them were having problems. And one of them was on their way out the door to give up, because no one in the room spoke English and no one really cared about their problems. And I thought about this, and so one of the guys, I asked him, I said, "Why are you here today?" Because he could have easily gave up because his registration wasn't in that area, some issues going on. We certainly fought to get him a provisional ballot. And he told me, he said, "You know what?" He said, "I come from Bolivia." And he said, I don't want a Bolivia in America. Right. And I said to and so now I'm confused, right? Because he's throwing me off a little bit, right? And I'm just like, and so again, I don't know, I'm conversational in Spanish. I'm not sort of academic in Spanish. So what I want to say, I need to say in English to him, right? But I basically said, and I was like, so what is wrong with caring for people? I knew I could say that in Spanish, right? I said, what is wrong with caring for people? Why are you anti-socialism? And so I want to ask you that question. A lot of the conversations, especially around the poising the conversations toward Latinos for Trump anyway, has been this fear not to sort of regress into Cuba, to regress into Peru, to regress into Bolivia, to regress into those socialist countries who many of them have come from, and feel that if they rolled with a Biden, then they're going to sort of regress back to that. Right now, we know that's not the case. We know that's certainly the case with Biden anyway. But the point is, that's not the narrative, right? So what do we say about those, or what do we think is going to happen to those who Trump has convinced, especially those Spanish-speaking folk, who Trump has convinced to be scared of what this American democracy looks like without me, Donald Trump? Anybody?
We have to be cutting against these narratives all the time. And this also gets to a point that is a battle within the party, right? So it's not helpful when we are describing universal healthcare by folks who are also Democrats as the crazy socialist position. These are not far left positions. These are not socialists. These are centrist positions. Right. And we've gotten so far out of whack. And so the Republicans have been very effective and the conservatives, let's call it, at deploying this narrative. And, just like the mayor was referencing in the defunding of certain public school systems, right? Because public education is also a form of government support. Certain systems have been defunded. That has tracked with a defunding of our government overall and making people skeptical of what government can even do. But we need to be real that has been a strategic effort, and it has been very, very effective. And folks like John Kasich have also been part of that throughout the 90s, right? So, and beyond. And so we have to be just as strategic, and also not shooting each other in the foot within our own party about trying to have some of these honest policy conversations. But fundamentally, I mean, yeah, there's a real branding issue, and it happens at the local level. It's a national media narrative. It's a state media narrative. It's a local media narrative. And we have got to be pushing back against that, because fundamentally people are voting against their interests, but we have lost the narrative game.
Yeah, and I certainly, I had to be careful, because I had to remember that, even though, of course, Mayor McLin is in Montgomery County, but I had to remember our Clark County people tell us we can't get political. We just have to help the people vote, move on. And I was like, look, I just got to ask dude a question, right? And I wanted to kind of get into a debate with him. And luckily, I didn't have that level of Spanish to kind of get into a conversation about what Spanish fascism looks like, right? And so I think when we think about a Brazil, or we think about I've got the country, or we think about what's going on now because of Trump, I'm like, dang, like this is what you're about to get into, bro, right? You know what I'm saying? But I don't know, it was fun though. But I shout out to all the poll workers across the nation, especially those in Montgomery County, Clark County, Franklin County, all the counties in our area. Hamilton County. A shout out to all of you, and all the counties, obviously, in our area. Shout out to all of you who put in that work. The first time I've done it, I don't know if it'll be my last time, but it certainly is my first time I've done it. And I wanted to see the process. I did see that. And so listen, we've been on with three people who certainly inspire me in many different ways. The mayor, when we both taught at Central State, I would see you on the elevator at West going to your class, and I would just want to, I would pick your brain in the elevator, and I just really enjoy meeting you. And you've always been a friend to me and been someone I could call, and I thank you. And we certainly still going to have that conversation soon. Joel, I'm just glad I met you, Joel. I'm glad that we're going to, continue to be in conversation. I'm glad for your voice and everything that I hear great about you. And I want you to continue that. And however Julius Bailey can help that, I am here for that. And obviously, Morgan, I've told you this once, I'm gonna tell you this 20 times. I'm there with you. A student came in my office the other day and said, "Hey, I know, I know you met a Morgan." And he was all excited. He had worked on your campaign, and he came in my office just excited that the two of us know each other, and we're going to be working together. So I just want to thank all of you for taking this day, not too many hours removed from the election that obviously we're all viscerally connected to give my audience an hour. They're going to share it to their friends, and they'll share it to those friends. And somebody right now, I'm sure, would be benefited by this conversation. So I want to thank you all for coming on the show today.
Dr. Bailey, real quick, I just want to say, if you allow me, to thank you to Morgan and to Ryan, two beautiful women, period, African-American women who, when I ran for my campaign, both supported me with words of encouragement. And Morgan hardly even knew me at that time, but would give a phone call or send a text message, or Ryan, just, hang in there. And that's what we need. And that's what has to happen as Black women, or as women, period, as we go forward and trying to really bring change to this community. So Desiree Timms is not by herself. We're going to take care of her. And I will challenge you this on one of your shows to talk about later the ADOS movement, the African Descendants of Slaves, because that community voted down ballot during this race. And it's going to be interesting to see what those numbers, if they really, and I'm sure they did, had an impact on the outcome of this presidential election.
Sure. And Madam Mayor, you have anything for us to close out?
I just want to say thank you so much. It's always a wonderful opportunity. And I've really enjoyed being on here with Joelle and Morgan. Morgan Harper, and that we as Black women, we appreciate this. I don't know what we should say this about you, Dr. Bailey. You have like a little harem here with the three of us women. Uh, but the fact is that we appreciate that you rise above it and allow us strong Black women to have conversation as you mediate. So God bless everybody and stay safe. And I do believe that Biden's going to make this through. And I believe that it's going to be slow walked. And as long as it's slow walk, the violence may be sped down.
That's true. That's true.
What I
That's
hope
true.
and pray.
Morgan, you got a last word for me?
No, I want the mayor to have the last word. So honored to be here with her and Joel, and thank you for having us.
Thank you, Morgan.
Certainly. I thank all three of you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So
Bye-bye.
listen, Straight No Chaser. So I'm just gonna say this. As you know, my intention is for this to be the final show of this season. That's just my intention, right? It may change tomorrow, right? I may call my brother Stephen Muhammad and say, "Listen, man, I need you, man. We're gonna go live next week, man." But right now, it's my intention to take some time off to focus in these last 2 weeks of our school here at Wittenberg as they kind of wrap up. We're going to shut down a little bit early here at Wittenberg so they can get home, and hopefully we'll have a safe transition. But I also have some thoughts, some thinking to do, right? I have some conversations to make. I have to decide whether or not what my intentions were for 2022 is still what my intentions are going to be. Yesterday was a body blow to me. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I don't know, maybe I hoped more for Ohio than what Ohio is ready to hope for itself. Maybe I looked at the fact that, yes, Ohio is an 82% white state. And yes, there's only 12% Black folk. But I knew that my entire life, I love Black people. I'm unapologetically Black. But I also know that the love I have for people transcends my race. And I believe, and I still believe that, I can have a voice that transcends race, that, as Mayor McLin said, that speaks to the agrarian society, that speaks to the poor folk across the nation, that speaks to the business class. Because I'm a capitalist. Don't get me wrong. All right. I want my check to be ran. You know what I'm saying? But I care first. But last night, as I watched Ohio and all these counties just vote and vote and vote for Trump, 3 million people and counting, almost 400,000 more people who voted for DeWine. And here I am in my mind thinking I need about 2.5 million votes in 2022. How could I even conceive of that? I don't know. I don't know where we are, Ohio. I don't know where we are, America. Pennsylvania today is, or probably won't know by Friday, but it looks like it's going to go back to Trump. It looks like right now, I'm peeking in my eye, it looks like Michigan and Wisconsin might go to Biden, and that might be his route after he wins Arizona and Nevada. That might be his route to the White House. But this is the America. This is why I have on black today, because I want to sing again. I want to say, God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her to the light with the light from above. I want to be able to sing that and mean that. But when I look across this nation and I look at stores boarding up and I look at DC putting up gates, I don't know who America is. I don't know who we are. When we're still having conversations about hating Mexicans, and we're still having conversations about hating Muslims, and we're still bringing out guns and swaths of trucks that are blocking a Biden-Harris bus. How can I sing America, America, God shed his grace on me? How can I sing that song? I don't know. I don't know. But I'll tell you what I'm going to be reading again, and I urge you to read this. I think it's time for us to reread what democracy looks like. I think it's time for us to reread people like Wendy Brown, Judith Butler, my brother in Stanford, Sheldon Wolin, and his Fugitive Democracy book. Pick that up. All right. A Democracy Incorporated. Pick those books up. Obviously, Eddie Glaude, the Reverend William Barber. They will help. Even some of the work that I was just given a final call the other day, some of the works that the nation is doing in the conversations. We need to ask ourselves, what are the other voices? What is in La Raza? What are they talking about? We're in America in trouble. We are in America suffering. We are in America sick. And a sick America needs individuals who are willing to be both therapy and comfort. I'm not giving up. I'm just in mourning. And so I thank you for allowing me to have this time with you over the course of these last 2 seasons. I thank Jasmine Evans, who's on my right, who's been my right-hand sister during this second season. Obviously, I thank Stephen Muhammad, who's been there since about day 3. And I thank all of you. So listen, I have a special conversation on race, democracy, and economics and the law coming up on 19th, if I can get my mind around it. But I'll be doing a couple more things with our university, and then obviously we'll go into the new year. So God bless you. Stay COVID-free. Keep your spirits up. Protect yourself. Protect your spirit. Protect your family. God bless you. Stay safe. Stay strong. Peace.
This is the next time. Prepare for fire. The grotesque fantasy of the shrinking so-called majority, America's nightmare, is slowly transitioning from somnolent slumber to a waking state akin to sleepwalking. America, for as long as it has existed, openly endorsed terror and rode the wave of fear that followed to superpowered dominance domestically and abroad. To be clear, when I say America, I mean white America. The America America sees, wants to see. Not the real America, but the ideal America. The America that stated all men are created equal while enslaving men and women who legally counted 2/5 less than their American masters. America, the beautiful, who crowns her good with brotherhood, but from sea to shining sea, shoots down and locks up young black boys and girls, men and women, with impunity. This is the next time. Prepare for fire. America's nightmare is America waking up. Good morning, America says. Good morning, America says. Good morning, America says good. Morning America says you're a true patriot. Don't let America die. Don't let America's death be in vain. Fight for America. This is good morning. The black and brown bruises on the American body must be cut off, must be amputated, or risk infection spreading. Sleep, America. This is an age-old procedure. Perfected, or inject local anesthetic, remove bruise, move, repeat procedure, or just sleep. It'll all be over when you wake up. This is the next time. Prepare for fire. This is America burning. This is America learning this is no nightmare. This is America waking up, realizing its bruises have not been removed, may not be removable, and trying to remove these imperfections or risk infection spreading. This black becoming blacker, this brown becoming more, this body belonging to this mind that has perfected seeing itself as pristine. This is America operating, white America cutting into her native skin, excising what does not belong, what she does not want to see. Cut deeper, cut to the white. It burns, but it's worth burning. Not seeing it must be worth the price. This is America screaming. This is America waking up. This is the next time. Prepare for fire. The remains will be black. This is America on the brink of break, ever aware of a two-ness of which there is a constitutional greater and lesser, necessary evils that history won't heal and Hennessy won't help. Darkness and lightness, created in the likeness of white God and white Jesus, who would rather see white America burn than see it turn into what it already is, what it always was. America becoming awake, America becoming aware, is America becoming so scared of what she knows she is capable of doing to herself. Dream sweet, America. Dream deep. Breathe deeper. Now deeper. And sleep. Sleep. You were made from this. You were made for this. You were made by this. You are on fire. This is the next time. America is burning.